Welcome to Life, Recovery, and Addiction. For one, I'm an addict. Been using drugs most of my life. Started in high school. Um, didn't really get into the harder stuff until later on in life. I was in my late 20s. Um, Childhood growing up, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad either. Really wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. I mean, being a big guy, there's a lot of issues comes along with that. Children making fun of you. Um, I was always bigger than all the other kids, so a lot more people wanted me to be more mature than I actually was at the time. So I grew up a lot faster, I guess, on the maturity level than most people do. Um, so that I think that really led into a lot of my issues, thinking I was older than I was. Because hell, I've been through a lot. I'm only in my early 30s, and I've already dealt with a lot more than most people do in their entire life. And I completely understand how that goes. I mean, when it comes to addiction, you make that conscious choice to do it the first or second or third time, but you don't actually ever choose to become addicted to a certain substance, or not even just substance in general, but addiction in general. You don't choose that for yourself. It's not what you want. Things in life bring you down so hard sometimes, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. I mean, and sometimes people just want to numb that. And that's where a lot of addiction comes into play, is people want to just numb how they're feeling. And I get that. I did. I did the same thing. I grew up hurting a lot, especially when I got into my later 20s after my divorce. I was hurting pretty bad. I mean, that's pretty much where, you know, certain substances came into play. And that's what really led me down to the road of an opiate addiction. To, and then there comes surgeries that really added to it. And the thing is, I don't blame anybody for my addiction. I man up, I take care of it, it's mine. I am in recovery. I've been in recovery for almost 2 years now. I mean, I love it. Um, I have a sponsor. Um, I have sponsee brothers, sponsee family. I have my regular family, because you don't know how hard it is to get your family back after you do the things you do in addiction. Seriously, you don't plan on setting out to become addicted to something, and then you end up robbing your family, taking stuff that don't belong to you, hurting the ones that you love, you care about. You don't ever expect to do that. When you're addicted to something, you become another person. You are not the person that they've come to love and know and trust. You become somebody else, a darker person. Simple as that. And we talk a lot in recovery about the addiction, you know, and in my opinion, it is a disease. It is. Because you can actually trace it back to where it's almost a genetically passed on trait. In my family, yeah, it may have skipped a generation with my father, but he has his addictive tendencies too. But it may not be a substance abuse of any kind, unless you count nicotine, which I still smoke cigarettes, drink caffeine. I mean, there are certain things that you can't give up. You know, most people don't even realize that caffeine is an addiction. Most people don't realize that nicotine is a straight up addiction. You know, people don't realize shopping all the time is an addiction. People don't realize going to the casinos and gambling constantly is an addiction. You know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, gambling on football, baseball, sports in general is an addiction, especially if you can't go without doing it. You know, alcohol is an addiction. And I understand, you know, there's people that go to a different based recovery system. And I really am saddened by the fact that a lot of their recovery downgrades the, in general, addict who's addicted to anything. Because I'm going to be honest, there was not a drug in my life that I wouldn't do. I would do anything, you know, and that's just really how it comes down to it, down to the brass tacks. So, I mean, I really hope in this series of videos that we're going to be doing with me, and you'll meet the main interviewer, you know, that we can bring some hope to people, maybe open some people's eyes to the life of a drug addict, the life of somebody who's in recovery, and what it's like transitioning through all that, going from a person that everybody loves and trusts to somebody who can't even be in their own home when certain people aren't in that home because they can't be trusted to be left alone. They don't even have a key to their front door or back door. Especially, you know, you lose a vehicle, you can't borrow one to get anywhere, can't find a job, so you resort to things. Trust me, there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that they're not alone in all this. You know, I felt alone for the longest time until I found recovery for myself. And it's amazing how things work out for you. So if this is something that really touches home with you, that you really feel, please, I beg of you, find recovery. If you know somebody who's an addict, help them find recovery. If a loved one, you know, is showing signs of some kind of an addiction, talk with them. Explain to them that you're not going to turn your back on them. Because that's the biggest thing is to get an addict, someone who is addicted. Sometimes people say it takes them for hit rock bottom, but really what it comes down to is not giving up on that person, staying true to that person and loving that person with unconditional love. I wouldn't be here in front of this camera talking to you right now if it wasn't for that. if it wasn't for unconditional love that was shown for me, I wouldn't be alive today. You know, I had people looking out for me after an overdose. You know, the paramedics had to bring me back to life. And if I would have been by myself, I'd be dead. So, hopefully, you guys will enjoy this channel, Life, Addiction, and Recovery. We will be exploring a lot of issues, a lot of mainstream issues, a lot of hidden issues, a lot of things that we are very passionate about